Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Unit 5 team video. My name is Sarah, and this week I read the 2017 K-12 edition.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lana, and this week I read the 2016 K-12 report.
And I'm Amanda, and I read the Horizon Report 2016 Museum Edition.
Mm.
So we all read different reports this week. That's going to be interesting. So as I was reading mine, one of the standards that stood out the most to me was the standards for teachers, where it talks about modeling the effective use of technology and finding resources through digital tools. And in my report, it was talking about a long-term trend of deeper learning approaches, and that teachers are finding ways to model and show students how they can effectively use their mobile devices to lead their own inquiry. And it mentions that teachers once saw, and they probably still do see, mobile devices as being kind of distracting or annoying. But I think that if teachers can find ways to model for their students and show them how to find that information in a meaningful manner, it can be a benefit or an additional component to the learning experience. And I think it's kind of relating back to what we were talking about last week about that digital equity, also keeping in mind that if you're going to have kids use mobile devices, not all of them are going to have them. So just, being mindful of that issue also.
Yeah. When I was reading mine, I noticed that the redesigning learning spaces came up for the professional standards for growth. And I know that it's kind of thinking more about the technology, but the way that I interpreted that was just having space to let the kids take ownership of their work and being proud of the school. Just in general, the collaborative learning environments. And I thought about the T buildings. We have a lot of T buildings on my campus. The temporary buildings all the way in the back of the school, the heat goes out, the AC goes out. It's kind of a mess for them. And what I thought about with the collaborative learning environment, it's hard to collaborate and it's hard to want to be in an environment that's uncomfortable, just in general for you as a student or as a teacher. So I was just kind of thinking, we have to make the school itself be that collaborative learning environment and put more emphasis on giving the resources for classroom environments, desks that all match, being on a level playing field just in general. And that's really what stood out to me when it said environment.
Yeah, they talk a lot about the museum as well, and how they are constantly trying to keep their electronics and their technology up to date, because once their staff learns something, the next year it may be irrelevant and they have to learn something new. And so, they're constantly playing catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, like you're saying, Lana, about the students being comfortable, and that also kind of connects to making sure that kids feel comfortable enough using technology, that they all have access to what they need. And I think you mentioned it one week, or maybe last week, Amanda, about being mindful of not putting it out there that so-and-so doesn't have a tablet or so-and-so doesn't have this technology access at home. And so it kind of ties into that comfort and, making sure kids feel comfortable.
You can't have technology in a classroom where the classroom is constantly changing.
Right, absolutely, or things are constantly changing. Mm-hmm.
The T buildings at my building, especially, if the AC goes out in the T buildings, there's a drip from the walls. You can have a drip from the walls with computers in the room. You have a shortage. We did have a shortage a couple of years ago. Blew out the whole circuits for the entire T buildings out there. So if you're making an environment that's not even just ready to adapt for technology, just the environment in general, how are you going to bring that in for the school?
Right.
You can't.
Nope, absolutely not.
So what I found interesting this week was the shifting away from traditional lecture style lessons, where the teacher's sitting up at the front and they're just kind of talking And I realized that even though this was in 2016, we still have to have conversations about that as teachers. Getting new textbooks and new resources that incorporate technology in a way that kids are able to manipulate their learning environment. And the 10 to 15 minute mini lesson, I know we really try and stick hard to that for English, but making sure that the kids are engaged in the lesson, and like you were saying with the mobile devices, letting them see that they can take ownership and be a part with something that's a tool for them and that's being modeled for them. I thought that that was really interesting, that even though in 2016 it was a new thing, we're still having to have conversations with teachers and with students about this 3 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I found interesting falls under the STEAM umbrella, which is the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And it talks about, in the long-term trend of advancing cultures of innovation, that schools focus on a model in which students build those critical thinking skills that mimic real-world experiences. And they do it through entrepreneurship, collaboration, project-based learning, and creativity, which, like I said, falls underneath that STEAM umbrella. And I think it's a great shift, but it's going to take training and getting teachers prepared to shift their mindset and think about different ways to allow students to take control and explore opportunities through those experiences. Maybe even thinking of ways to teachers kind of step back and become more of a facilitator or moderator, and instead of being the one of being in charge or always giving the information, giving students those opportunities to experience real world things.
Yeah, that was definitely what I found too, is that, the same problems that educators are facing, they're facing globally. And then I noticed that when I read the library edition, it was the same with like the museum edition. All these people are facing the same kind of problems that us as educators are facing. So, it was interesting to me that it's not just one spectrum, it's all over like an umbrella, and it covers all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely interesting.
And then how did you guys find that we could use this information this week?
So in the report, one of the things in the report that I read was that in Brazil, students actually collaborate on the curriculum. And I think that would be really interesting to allow, to a certain grade level, or because probably not the youngest kids, but they could still maybe, pick an interest or say, hey, I want to learn more about this. But I think it's something that could be kind of cool to do. And obviously there are things that children wouldn't be able to collaborate on, but giving them a voice or giving them an option would probably empower them and motivate them more. And I just thought that was something that schools could begin thinking about. But again, it's kind of shifting that mindset and thinking about things differently.
I completely agree. That's pretty much straightforward what I thought as well. Urging the colleagues to listen to their students. It's hard. When I first started doing PBLs, and I am a STEM ELAR teacher, I had to let go. And that was so hard. That was the hardest thing about teaching that first year of STEM. I didn't know how to let go. And I struggled so greatly with that. And giving my students an opportunity to tell me what they wanted to learn and tell me what they wanted to do, and me just sitting back and being that consultant, it was scary. But now it makes sense. I see it. And I think that everyone should try and experience that at least once. Just once.
Yeah.
So I thought about it in a grander scheme, and I thought that maybe if we all could come together and be a support for one another, the libraries, the museums, the educators, that maybe by partnering with one another, we could find problems for our solutions, and the facilities facing the similar issues, they could help to find resolutions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One of the things that my report was talking about was public and private schools collaborating, which I thought was like, what? That just sounds kind of crazy. But like you're saying, man, if everyone comes together, it could be good for everyone overall. But I think there's always other things that that factor in, and kind of easier said than done.
That's true.
All right, ladies. Well, it was good meeting with y'all this week, and we'll see each other next week.
Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.